Sorry.
Hearing isn't open until we get to that point. We just start here. Consent agenda and then the topics on the floor. Then we do the hearing. We don't start the hearing yet. Here's your agenda. That's when we actually get to the hearing.
Oh, gotcha.
We got a couple of things to do. Like the minutes.
Consent agenda, January 9th.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as given to us.
I second.
It's been motion, and what do I say?
Remember to eat the mic.
Mike?
Been moved and
The minute takers will love you.
Seconded.
When you say all in favor.
all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Topics from the floor, not public hearing agenda, limited for 5 minutes per topic. I see none.
Now you're on.
Public hearing agenda.
And I can go.
There we go.
Sure you're the right one.
Yeah, that was, I mixed them up here. Yep, that's, okay. It's now 7:02 PM. Public hearing is now open. This is a quasi-judicial land hearing. Subject of this hearing is a request for a variance permit and a partition. The subject property is
That's the
identified.
7:30 item.
The annexation.
Need the
Yep,
annexation.
got it, thank you. Okay. 3, quasi-judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is a request for an annexation. The subject property is identified on the county assessor's map as lot 200 on map 4N1W-9BB. The applicant is JLJ Earth Movers LLC. The owners are Ronald and Tamara Schlumpberger and James and Laura Ives. Because the quasi-judicial proceedings require observance of certain procedural formalities, we'll make a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and require statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter?
Nope.
I hear none. Does anyone from the audience object to the ability of a commissioner to make a fair decision? I hear none.
So then you can go to that.
Right there. Generally, the order of the proceedings will follow required statements, staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberations, and decision. The following statements are required to be made with the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code ORS 197.7635. The following list of applicable substantive criteria for this decision: St. Helens Municipal Code 17.080.040. 1. Quasi-judicial amendment and standards criteria. 17.28.030. Annexation approval standards, ORS 222 and ORS 197. St. Helens Comprehensive Plan and St. Helens Development Code. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described, or other criteria in the plan, such as comprehensive plan or land use regulation, such as that found in the Development Code, which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval, this hearing in person or in writing, or failure to raise the issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue. Precludes appeal to the LUBA, the Land Use Appeals Board, on that issue, and precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Request the staff report from the city planner and other staff members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So this is an annexation.
His favorite part.
And if you travel Gable Road, which being the major road that it is, most, if not all of you have, you probably noticed this property evolving over the last, I don't know, maybe it's been a couple years now. This was the famous, as the county code enforcement officer called, the famous $1 million house, that pink abandoned house that sat there for a long time. It finally sold, and you probably saw it cleared a little bit, and then some period of inactivity. And then John L. Jersey started building his facility there. And that's the subject of this annexation request. As part of that development activity, they wanted to have city water, so they extended the water line connected to it. That connection required a consent to annexation, which means that, okay, we'll connect you, but you are willing for us to annex you in, and this is that procedure. It's a little over 2 acres. It's along Gable Road. I should note that Gable Road at this location is a city road. You know, sometimes road are the county, sometimes the cities. This is specifically ours. The county has had a couple design reviews. One thing I gave you that wasn't attached just because it came out too late was the county's final order on the last decision. And this was for a pretty substantial building, a little over 8,000 square feet in size. And what I did is I put a little arrow to comments that specifically pertain to the city or that the city commented on. Being our road, of course, or most of our comments had to do with wanting frontage improvements, which we made very clear to the applicant before they purchased the property. And there is some relevance to the annexation too. But I just wanted to make sure you had a copy of this so you're aware that decision was made. This would have been attached to your packet if so the county, when a development is large enough, they have to have a public hearing on design reviews. And this was scheduled for, I think, the January meeting, but many of the county planning commissioners had the flu, and so they didn't have a quorum. So that kind of delayed them a little bit. So I thank this for commission for staying strong. We've had a quorum despite the flu season.
No coughing.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on the county decision a little bit here. This is a pretty straightforward annexation. One of the things that we have to consider when we have these is, well, what do we zone it? And for that, we look at our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan identifies the property as unincorporated light industrial. And in some cases, we have several choices of which zoning are we going to pick. Especially when it's residential. We could have up to 4 choices. But when it comes to this light industrial category, the only zoning option available is light industrial. So that's pretty much one road to path. So basically that's a yes or no. The only other significant thing I should mention is our annexation policy does have some language about requiring frontage improvements. Now, we've had a lot of these over the years where it's just a residential house connecting to city water or sewer because of a septic failure or something. And there's some Supreme Court cases out there that say you have to have a nexus and proportionality to require certain improvements. And so a lot of times when we have these annexations, you have a little house you're connecting to water, sidewalks, that's overkill. But in this case, it is directly related to a significant development proposal. And so we do have a condition in there for frontage improvements. Now that condition is in the county's decision. So we anticipate this being done potentially before annexation. But I wanted to make sure there was a condition in here based on the timing of things. I don't know, the county could be really slow. It could end up being in the city. So I want to make sure we have teeth that reflects the county decision and in the annexation in the unlikely event that we have to throw our weight around to get those improvements done. I doubt that's the case because we've said that to the owner before purchasing. They're totally understanding of the city's desires. But I do like to have tools to make our efforts much easier. And so we do have a condition in there. I was kind of looking at it today, and I would probably reword it slightly. But the way it's written provides the gist of it. And the other thing that's in the conclusion is there's a line that says designated developing, and that should have been deleted. That only applies to residential property. But basically, the recommendation, and I should note, this is not your decision. This is a recommendation to the city council, is to approve the annexation with a comprehensive plan designation of light industrial, a zoning district of light industrial, and given the improvements or the condition of frontage improvements. The other thing I should note is even though our code, our charter requests a vote for annexation, there was a state law that came out a couple years ago that said it doesn't matter what charters say, you can't do that anymore. So that's why that little statement is here. This annexation will not be subject to voter approval. For a long time, we said it would be. So it's pretty straightforward as annexations are concerned. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused on the timing and who's in charge of what, the county and the city here. So I guess my first question is, does the county issues go away since it goes into the city and becomes part of the city, or does all the county stuff happen and the city stuff's happening at the same time, just this annexation? It's just confusing to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of different moving parts. So they applied, so the county takes the lead on building and land use until it's annexed. And so they have a decision by the county. And so the county's conditions are the ones that matter.
So they had a decision by the county already.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, when
It's not something that still
no,
needs to be decided.
this
Okay, that's
decision
why I
has
wasn't sure.
been made
Okay.
by the county. And
What's the wonderment about the improvements? Because that's required, right, by the county?
that is required per the county decision.
Okay.
And
That's not outstanding still.
no.
Okay. All right.
And I want to make sure it's a condition of the annexation just as a backup plan.
I gotcha. Okay.
I don't think we'll need to use that
That's
but-
clear. Thanks.
in the unlikely event something weird happens. And this property has been, especially in the early phases, a little extra weird. Since John L. Jersey took this portion, it's been slightly less weird, though there has been some subtle imperfections that can be remedied. For example, they put in their driveway approach early in the morning before it can be inspected by city staff, so we have no way of knowing whether or not the sub base is what we want. But as part of these frontage improvements, we'll make sure that's remedied.
So the other question I have regarding the county's requirements for the frontage improvements, how do they look compared to what we would approve if it was coming for us? Is that,
So,
we're gonna get this baby when it drops in our lap.
yeah, so we have a good working relationship with the county, especially since we appealed a decision many years ago where they didn't require sidewalks and we wanted them. But the way it works is we communicate with them.
Uh-huh.
It's our street. There are standards, and so the civil plans come to us,
Oh, okay.
and then we just make sure that when the county, they kind of have it built in here prior to building permit issuance, engineering construction plans approved. So the county's going to say, "Hey, how's that going?" And we'll say, "Yep, it's okay. It's okay for us to be issued." So as long as the communication is good with both jurisdictions, which it is, and it has been for several years, it shouldn't become a bureaucratic mess.
What about the sewer line?
Sewer, they have an on-site system that the county approved. There is not a sewer line within an economic distance to extend, so there is no city sewer. And
Beyond their frontage? It's beyond,
well beyond.
okay.
And so in those cases, the county asks us if there's a sewer line legally and physically available, and there's some stuff in statute that defines that. So when we say nope, then they say, okay, we can explore an on-site system. And if this was residential, that would be a challenge because there's more demand. But because it's industrial, they can get away with the holding tank.
Right.
So is this a holding tank that has to be pumped occasionally?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think it said they had to have a contract that would be taken care of.
And that's actually that's a good thing to bring up in this whole county-city mix, because even after it's annexed, the county will still have jurisdiction for the on-site system. You know, any septic in the county, whether it be in city limits or outside, is under their jurisdiction.
So imagining a long period in the future when the city decides to extend its sewer line that direction, would they then abandon the other program and come into the sewer system if that is something the city does?
Yeah, we could require them to do that. Our city policy says any property within 160 feet of a sanitary sewer main can be required to connect, and they would have to abandon their system at that time.
Do we have to make that as a issue?
No, that's it's embodied in the code already, and that could be. Chances are this annexation will be long and forgotten by the time that happens. That's either going to be a major development that really needs that sewer to make things happen, or it could be, urban renewal funds that expand it in 15 years from now or something.
Any more questions? Okay. Could we have a presentation from the applicant? I don't see anybody holding their hand up or getting up, so.
That makes it
Testimony in
easy.
support of the application?
I think they're holding here for the other one.
Yeah, we'll get through this. Okay, anybody not in favor?
Guess they didn't expect to have a controversy.
Okay, opposition, rebuttal,
Nothing to rebut.
nothing to rebut. Okay, do we have any other further questions? I see none. All right, now where do I go? Attorney present, 17. Yeah. Okay, hearing no further questions from the commission and no further response from the staff, the public record is closed. And this matter is returned to the table for deliberations and oral discussion.
And if you really want to take advantage of your position, you can use the gavel to close it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's getting a little
Well,
loud.
predecessor never used it. I didn't know I picked that up or not.
Well, I've used it a
I'll
few
give it a
times.
swing eventually.
Okay.
Maybe, a couple more times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a pretty clear-cut issue.
Cut and dry.
I don't see much controversy.
Yeah.
No.
I make a motion that we approve recommend to the city council approval of the annexation,
I second it.
and that we identify the property as light industrial zoned. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you just approve as recommended by staff, that
Okay.
would be the easiest
second
motion.
that.
There you go.
It's a motion and seconded.
Those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
All opposed? Hear none?
Motion carries.
Nobody has to sign this, right?
Nope, this goes to the council.
Okay, yeah, there's no signature.
There you go.
Okay, the final written decision of the planning commission may be appealed to the city council. The notice decision will be mailed to all persons who testified or submitted comments. The appeal deadline will be included in the notice.
You did that?
Right.
They close it
Okay.
Good job.
And right, it's now 7:21.
So we can, I'm assuming all four of you are here for the partition? Okay. So
We have
tech-
to wait till 7:30.
technically, we
Oh,
need to
tech-
wait till 7:30 just for process.
Why don't we do the rest of the stuff?
Sure.
You can go
So-
down and
Yeah.
do the rest of the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Acceptance agenda, the planning minister site design review.
I move we accept it.
Second.
Which one was this?
That's for the site design review, Multnomah Industrial Park.
Yeah,
right.
the new building for Composites Universal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Not in favor? Opposed? Hear none? Okay. Okay, planning director decisions.
I just had a question about the sensitive lands permit, because I always do. Is it more than floodplain? Or is it just floodplain-ish?
No, there are some wetlands on that property, and the plans they originally gave me were uncomfortably close, and so I gave them some comments before the final decision, and they moved stuff around, and so that's no longer an issue.
Where's this at?
This is the Multnomah Industrial Park.
No, the sensitive lands still Multnomah Industrial Park?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
wrong.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. It's the same address. Okay. 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 Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a site design review sensitive lands permit. It was a joint permit.
Yeah, it's pretty wet
Oh, I
there.
see what the- There's no
Okay.
I is the problem. So it looks like H is the sensitive land home
Must be a-
occupation.
Must be an I.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had a type 1
Is
home
that it?
occupation on a
Home
sensitive land.
occupation on sensitive land?
Yeah, we've had plenty of homeless people and live on sensitive lands, that's for sure. All right.
Are notices sent out to, like, the home occupations within a certain distance?
Yeah, type 1s are just adjacent.
Okay,
So it's pretty minimal,
yeah, all right.
but they're not generally not that big a deal.
Let's see if there's any for information items that we want to talk about. For 6 minutes.
You did
On
6
what
minutes.
now?
Can you sing, Russ?
Pardon?
Can you sing or something? A long song?
So, planning department activity reports? Did we,
Usually it's just if you have questions about what was sent out,
okay. That was what we did.
any FYI.
Yeah, I had if I can bring something up, the school district plan for the middle school students getting around during the construction.
Yeah, the access.
Does that meet what we had proposed, what we had asked for?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. In fact, that was just a more dressed up version. So if you remember, we had the original
Right.
decision, then we amended it, I think.
Well, we originally wanted the sidewalks.
Yeah.
They came back and they requested.
Yeah, so that was the amendment. And
Right.
so, and that gave them time to prepare their conceptual access management plan. And, I looked at it, made sense to me, and you all had a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
And so that's the same plan that's also attached to all the building permits. And then I saw it in the paper as part of their press release. Well, that's cool. That's kind of what came from this commission. And actually, I guess I'm glad you brought it up, because it was a good example of how our code works with the relationship with the council liaison and the commission. Because what the code says is the council liaison can participate in the discussion, but is not a voting member.
Right.
And if I remember right, and don't shoot me for remembering it wrong, please, but I think the initial concern about safe patches for the students came from Council Carlson,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what evolved into the management
Correct.
plan requirement. And so I thought that was a really good example of how that works.
Yeah, my ultimate goal was protection of the kids
Yep.
during the construction, because that's a difficult area already. And we're not always in sunshine when kids are let out, especially in the winter months. And if you have the construction, heavy trucks coming in and out, kids, practice of sports or whatever, all day and early evening, coming out of there, you really want to protect them during that period of time. And I wanted to make sure that we did put into, as best we could, every safeguard possible to protect them during that construction. Because it's not always going to be beautiful days when the construction is going on. So,
Yeah, the
I
other
noticed, I went out there after one of those meetings, and that trail is about half paved. It's paved from the street all the way up to the ball field already. Hole in the fence, it's a paved asphalt thing. And I also noticed that plan in the paper. I didn't remember seeing a section of road on the south side of the road where the construction entrance that said no pedestrian access in this area. I was glad to see that. It looked like it was added to me. I didn't remember that there before. That was good.
The other thing that wasn't in the paper, and I don't know if it detailed in the paper, all of that information went out to every single parent in the district. In addition to anybody in the district that lives in those addresses can request a bus during that time period and will be offered a bus service as well.
great.
And that was my whole issue is I see how many kids walk down West Street,
Mm-hmm.
and that was way too many kids to find a way to school.
Exactly.
So that's why it needed to be a designated plan. And I knew the school district wanted that. They just didn't have it in their, if they don't have it in their packet, it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
So I may not know all the rules and stuff, but I just said, make a plan to get those kids to school safe.
Well, and it's also a liability for the school district and the contractor too, if something were to happen.
They're pretty motivated.
Because of all you did, the end result is a complete plan that takes kids into
Exactly. For once, we actually did something ahead of time.
When do they start? You have a feel for when they're going to
That's
start?
another question.
Well, so the CCEC plans, actually the middle school plans too, have been through all departments but building. Building department has reviewed the CCEC plans with some comments. And so depending on how quick they address those comments, which I read them this morning, didn't seem too bad. Those permits should be ready fairly soon. And the middle school plans just got to the building official. I don't know how long that's going to take them. I mean, it was over an inch thick of
Stuff.
3x4, big plans.
Yeah. Well, it's a big project.
Yeah.
Hopefully they have enough money to complete it. I see they're already talking about maybe having to cut back what they were proposing for the high school, some of the work because they might not have enough money to. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables in there. And I had a comment from them. Well, we should probably.
Well, I'm glad that we did that and that things are working out.
All right. It's now 7:30. The public hearing is now open. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is to request for a variance permit and a partition. The subject property is identified on the county assessor's map as 5300 on map 4N1W-3BD. The applicants are Ray and Valerie Vanderwall. The owner is the same. Because the quasi-judicial proceedings require an observance of certain procedural formalities, we'll take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare ex parte conflict or interest in the matter? I hear none. Anyone from the audience? The ability of a commissioner to make a fair decision? I see none. Generally, in order, the proceedings will be as follows. Required statements of the staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, and those opposed, rebuttal of the applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberations, and discussions. Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to the City Code, ORS 197-7635. Following list of the applicable substantive, you can do that for me, criteria for this decision. St. Helens Municipal Code 17.108.050.1, criteria for granting a variance. And St. Helens Municipal Code 17.140.040, land partition approval criteria. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described or other criteria in the plan, such as comprehensive plan or land use regulations, such as found in the development code, which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval in this hearing, in person or in writing, or failure to raise the issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to LUBA, Land Use Appeals Board, on that issue, and precludes the action for damages in certain circuit court. Let the hearing begin. We request the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a partition and variance. 321 Tualatin. And Tualatin is misspelled throughout the report, so I just want to
I can
get
never,
a head stop
I can never spell Tualatin.
before anybody else says it, so we'll fix that. So this is an interesting one. This is our partition that Jenny worked on, and seems like, you know, this is one of those onions. You keep peeling a layer, and there's just more details that came out of it. So it's a standard city lot, but it's one that's bloated. Basically, it's larger from a vacation, right-of-way vacation along Tualatin and 3rd that was done around 2002, if I remember correctly. So what once was a 5,800 square foot lot, which is a very, very common size on this side of the highway in town, is now close to 8,400. And so the applicant and the owner wants to cut that into 2 pieces. And in order to do that, you need the partition, but they need the variance because the way it's being sliced will result in 2 lots that meet the dimension and size standards except for the lot depth. The minimum lot depth is 85 feet, and what they have to work with is 73, which is the original 58 plus the 15 from the vacation from 2002. And so you don't normally get partition decisions before you, but the variance is pretty essential for this partition to be approved. I mean, it just couldn't be approved otherwise. So they're kind of tied at the hip. So I guess the first thing that you would want to do is ask yourself, based on the approval standards for the variance, do you think you could approve it? Because if you can't approve the variance, the lots aren't going to meet the dimensional standards, and there's no way you can approve the partition. And we can talk about those, or I can just get into all the conditions that we have in here if you want to approve it full. So I don't know which.
I personally would like us to look at the problems first and then look at approving. So the conditions.
Yeah, okay, that works. Okay,
There's so much missing.
so we're going to go to page 8 in the report.
That's where I'm at.
You're already ahead of us.
Yeah, well, there's so much missing that it threw me by the time I got done reading it.
No. So there's a few categories of conditions here. And the way the partition works is the first step is we get the preliminary plat, and that's the concept, and that's what we have here today. And after that is at the end there's the final plat that gets recorded at the county. That's what officially cuts the lot into two. And there's some stuff that we want to have before we accept the final plat. That's condition 2. There's stuff that we want to see on or with the final plat. That's condition 3. And then we'll talk about condition 4 at the end. So, condition 2, stuff we want to see before we get a final plat. So we want some survey information to confirm some things. One, with the partition, we don't want to create any new non-conforming circumstances. And the one in this case would be the distance of that new property line from the side of the existing home. The standard is 5 feet, and we just want to make sure that that standard is certified, essentially. So that's what that first condition 2A, lowercase Roman numeral 1, is about. The second one is where exactly is the sanitary sewer lateral? And that's the private line that connects to the sewer line. The sewer line, you can see in that picture, is that green line. You see where Jenny's moving the crosshairs over. And Catherine, would you like us to move that screen out?
I sure can't see it. I appreciate that very much.
While you're out there, can you turn that mic on? I realized I didn't turn it on earlier.
Thank you, that's a big
that's great.
improvement.
So here's
Much
the
nicer.
Yeah, we did big ones.
sewer line.
I've been doing that long ago.
It's a bummer.
Get closer to it.
Okay, is that better? All right.
Testing, okay. So,
Could they move their chairs in front of Jenny?
yeah, do you want to move, or do you want to try to get this where everybody can see?
I mean, you're welcome to sit at this table so you can see the closest one here. While we at least describe.
Yeah, we won't call
Yeah,
it.
come on up so you can sit there and look
We
at
don't
that
bite.
too.
Okay, sewer line.
All right, so the sewer line. So the issue there is we want to make sure we know exactly where that lateral is, because if it's going to be
I guess.
close or on that new parcel, we want to make sure there's a private easement for it.
How about that?
So that's the issue there. We want to know exactly where the public storm drain system, the sanitary sewer, and water main are at. There is a 15-foot wide easement along both streets, but we want to make sure those easements are adequate for that infrastructure. And if they're not, we'll make sure we get easements on the final plat. Another issue is the intersection of 3rd and Tualatin. Looks like it may be within that property, and so that's another thing we want to remedy. And a survey would kind of show exactly where it's at. This image is not done by a surveyor. It's our GIS, which gives us a pretty good idea of where things are, but not the exactitude that we would like. And so that's what these conditions are about, basically, is exactitude. Condition 2B, this is a kind of a low point that collects water. And so another thing that we're looking for is a stormwater management plan. And we want to make sure that stormwater is going to the right place and will not interfere with development of the new parcel. A lot of this has to do, we don't want to create a lemon parcel. We don't want to create a parcel that people are going to go, how could the city do this? And so a lot of these conditions are about making sure everything's cool, essentially. It's a parcel that can be reasonably developed. 2C talks about frontage improvements or a fee in lieu of, which is a possibility. 2D, there is the water meter, I think, on 3rd Street. And we want to make sure the water meter associated with each lot is located appropriately. And if the water meter for the existing house is on 3rd and it's divided, that doesn't make sense anymore. So that's what that's about. And then 2E is a geotech report. There's evidence of unconsolidated soils. And in fact, one of your attachments, an old map, shows there may have been a pond there. But there's been a lot of evidence from other staff that's been here a while where they're kind of wondering if the soil conditions, what exactly is going on there. And so we want some evidence from a geotech report that says, okay, we have something that can work. So it's all about avoiding creating a lemon lot. So condition 3, the stuff we want in the final plat. And these are very related. So 3A is the easement for the sanitary sewer lateral. 3B are public easements for the things we discussed, the storm infrastructure, the sewer line, the public main. And the water main, maybe I didn't discuss that very well, but it's pretty close to 3rd, to the property line. We just want to make sure we know exactly where that is in relation to that line, because again, it's not exact there. A private sanitary storm easement, if the management plan demonstrates a need for that, that easement would be going across the vacant parcel for the benefit of the developed parcel. And then the street encroachment to be dedicated as right-of-way. And then number 4 just talks about frontage improvements or fee in lieu of for the vacant parcel once it's developed.
Do we have any questions of staff?
I do. So, looking at Sue's letter about the old 1916 drawing here, and I know things have changed since then. It's not clear to me how much fill has been put into this site. Is it level? Is it still a depression? Is it still wetland?
Well, the problem is it's not clear to anybody. And, there was some thoughts that because the mill is nearby, it could have been filled by, mill debris or something. We just don't know. And it's that lack of knowledge, but the evidence is expressed pretty well in Sue's letter that could be, the ground conditions may not be great that we want the something that shows, okay, this ground is okay.
It's an engineering issue more than anything.
Yes.
To build a house on so it doesn't sink or
Yep.
whatever. Yeah. I just didn't know if there's any knowledge before we get the geotech report.
Is this still low grade?
Yeah, is there a feel for that? Is it below grade still? Is it depression still? Is this one where
Jenny, you visited the site more than me.
the Punic Fiero was down in there?
Yeah, I think it'd be good
down
too
to
to
its
have the
axis?
applicant kind of describe too. Obviously he owns the house where the property is and is familiar with it. But yeah, I mean, it does slope downward a little bit.
Yep.
I wouldn't say it's a sinkhole. It's definitely below grade of the street.
Does it hold water in rainstorms?
It's a low point. There's storm infrastructure on the site. So
There's a storm grate, right? See the
yeah,
red line
this
coming down
orange is
right there?
is a drain that
And it
collects
slopes
storm
right
water.
to that. I went up there today to look at it. And it slopes to that drain right there.
Okay.
And it's,
All right.
like it's functioning.
And
Thank you.
the city engineer did mention that the property has historically collected runoff and has been known to be boggy based on visual observation.
Yeah. I just know how historic that was. Can't tell from that.
Any more questions, staff? Okay. Applicant, your presentation.
Not sure what you're looking for.
We'll come up, have a seat, state your name and address, and we'll listen.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Vanderwall. I live at 144 South 21st Street. I've owned this property since probably maybe about 2000, maybe 1998. There is an existing house on there that I built shortly after I purchased the property. There was a house there before it fell over in a storm, and we built it back. The city just came and did some water line repair. There was a water leak, which is why it's wet right now. Periodically, it does get a little wet, but not any more than any other property in St. Helens. It's got a rock base underneath it. I guess I could just field questions if you have any, or in order to get to where I'm at, I had to address all the things that Jenny and Jacob thought were an issue, and so that's in the report. So if you guys have questions, I'd happily answer them to the best of my ability.
So your plans for the property are eventually to add a single-family dwelling?
I was looking at the possibility of a duplex if I could hit the square footage. I don't think I'm going to hit it, so it might be townhouses.
Okay.
And then you're gonna remove the house that you built?
No.
You're gonna leave that?
Yeah. The house that with the 321 on top of it, that's the house that's on the other part. See the little 321 up over here? If you don't mind me standing up. This is the existing house here.
What is the what, yeah,
This is somebody, this was a rental for a long period of time. This was their travel trailer, their boat, and the truck. The city had a heck of a time getting them to clean that up. But now it's all empty. My last tenants had a fence there, but we took the fence down since then. So it's all cleared. There's a gravel driveway over here, not relevant to anything. The city water main, he was asking about that. It is actually right here. And the sewer drain's there, just like they said.
I see there's a double wide structure on that. It's not,
He said it's gone.
No, that's not.
Yeah, that's,
There is
and
a
that-
double wide trailer right here, and I'm not sure how they got the sewer line underneath that, because they did that like 10 or 12 years ago. They came through and redid all of that. I'm not sure how they got the line under the house, but that's.
okay.
It might not
Line
be.
comes out, my house here, the sewer line comes out, tees along the proposed easement line, not easement line,
Partition.
partition line, which, being this homeowner, I can grant any variance that the city requires.
Now, you have a side yard, was it a side yard, or what was it that's not in conformity with city
So, what,
lot dimensions?
the way that it's set up is the lot is laid out this way, and this way you reach the dimensional number,
Okay,
okay? But you can't divide it that way. If you divide it that way, you'd have to tear the house down and then split it this way and have two long, tiny
right,
lots,
right.
which wouldn't even be developable
Right, could you pick up the mic? I'm sorry. Just hold it.
Thought my voice is
Yeah,
scary.
it won't record anything today.
Okay.
Thank you.
I feel like a talk show host now. So the reason why we're trying this is that this is a large chunk of land here that we could develop, but we need to come this way, and coming this way, we don't hit the lot depth requirements. We miss it by 12 feet. But we have more than enough square footage to develop it for townhouses. And we're exactly enough, if the survey comes back just right, we have exactly enough for duplexes, which it's either way. Either way, it's 2 houses on the same property.
Now, townhomes would mean you're creating 3 parcels, not 2.
That is correct.
But that's not what we're considering tonight.
Yeah, the way this is conveyed is a 2-parcel partition.
So when I talked to Jenny about it, she mentioned that we could do townhouses if we didn't hit the square footage mark. So if that's another step that we need to take,
No, so townhomes actually divides the parcel into individual
Yes,
parcels, and that's
yes.
what this process is. So you would need a variance for each individual parcel division in the future if you want to do townhomes.
then that would be something we would need to do.
So
Because otherwise, okay, so why don't we just get this? Because I could build a single-family home if it's something you guys don't want to do in the future.
Yeah, well, we can't change the proposal midstream, so this.
No, what I'm saying is could I not come back at a future point and say, thank you for getting us this far. May I propose this and go through the filing process?
Yeah, there's nothing that prohibits
Yeah,
you from.
so let's just get this done, because if I need to build a single-family home there, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay.
I didn't want to complicate it more, and I didn't realize that I needed to, so.
Just so we understand.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for your.
Any other questions?
Any good questions? No. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody in support of this application? See none. Neutral testimony? Yes? You come up to the mic, please.
My name is Frank Brandon. I live at 330 Tualatin Street, directly across Tualatin from that property. All I want to know, and I'm sure it's a pretty simple thing, is this stays residential, right? Nobody can drop in a 7-Eleven there, yeah, right? Well,
Yeah.
doesn't say that anyplace.
No,
That's
no.
why I'm asking.
The zoning stays the same, and the variance specifically says use variances aren't allowed.
Okay.
So,
That's my question as the guy who lives across the street, is I didn't want a trailer park, I didn't want a 7-Eleven, I didn't whatever there. I don't have a problem with, another home or anything of that.
basically, it increases the potential density.
Got it. I just, simple basic question, I did not see an answer to in what was mailed to me, so.
It was a good
That's all.
question.
Good question.
Thank you.
And we'll all stay
Thanks for
residential.
telling me it was a great question. too.
Thank you.
All questions are good.
Do we have any testimony in opposition? State your name and address, please.
Howard Blumenthal, 462 South 3rd Street. I've lived in the neighborhood for coming up on almost 18 years. In the 18 years that I've been there, I've watched many things happen on this piece of property. The other day when I was up there, the catch basin you were talking about, there was no visible water going into the catch basin, but you could hear water going into it because the water is very low in the ground there. Also, the travel trailer that he was talking about, when they went to pull that out of there, it almost tipped over because the ground is so soft they had to start putting things underneath the tires. There's a pickup truck off to the left side of it. That pickup truck had sat there for about 5 years and had sunk all the way to the frame in spots because the ground is so soft. There used to be a Fiero that was there. It did the exact same thing.
That's what I thought the lot was. Thank
Yep.
you.
The Fiero moved because the water line through there since I've been there now, within about 100 feet has broken 3 times, including last Friday, that the water line broke when I was leaving the house. I noticed that there was fresh tire tracks coming out of where the trailer was, and then I noticed suddenly the next morning there's water bubbling up out of the ground. The water line also broke right about where that pickup truck was in the last 10 years. We're also very concerned that to where the existing house is, that's a crest of a hill. Our neighborhood is getting a lot of people in there that have way more cars than what they have room on their property. My next question would be for Jacob, like on 3rd Street, are people allowed to start parking on the pavement and narrowing it to a kind of a one-lane street? You know, and that's some of our concerns, is that if that lot is so soft that people can't really park in it, that the next thing we're going to start doing is we're going to have people parking on Tualatin and 3rd Street. When people come over to visit, that's a corner with a crest of a hill. We're concerned about the visibility of being able to see over the top of the hill and turning out of there, you know, because people speed. There's no doubt about it. People speed in these neighborhoods.
Well, any new development would be required to meet our current off-street parking
Yes,
standards. So
that
any detached single-family dwelling is supposed to have 2 non-tandem parking spaces that are paved with a paved connection from whether that be a pad, garage, carport to the street.
The thing is, though, you drive around our neighborhood, take a look at how many cars are in each yard. There's more than 2 cars. People have travel trailers, they have boats, they have so many things. And if the ground is that soft, they're not going to have the option to park on their lawn like some of the other people do. We already have 2 houses, one on Tualatin, where the people just drive across the lawn, and there's a huge area that's just mud. If they graveled it, it wouldn't be mud, but they just continue to drive. There's another one on my street where the guy just drives up the side and tracks mud back into the street because they don't have enough parking. And so my whole concern is, as soft as that lot is, and I really think I've been in the building business for 43 years, that lot just looks like it's got so much fill. The whole question is, how deep does the fill go? Any lot is buildable, but the question is, at what cost? How much money is somebody going to spend? If it's 5, 10 feet or more of fill, is that really worth the effort of somebody trying to put a foundation in there? You know, and once again, I don't want to see you guys end up with a white elephant where you subdivide it and then somebody builds a house and it sinks. There's already one in the neighborhood where if you look at it, it's tilting like this. And it was built on a lot that was too soft. So I'm kind of really concerned on that lot just, it was filled. As so many places in this city were filled, and we just don't know what's under there till somebody digs, you know? And if it's, you know, 5 or 10 feet down before you even get to anything, I mean, most of the time we're talking bedrock, but I got a feeling that thing is, as you said, it could be an old creek, old swamp, old lake. We're not sure what's there. So I'm kind of concerned about the thought of developing it.
Well, I think some of those questions will be answered when we get that geotech survey done. Is that correct?
Well, that's the intent.
Yeah.
So we have an expert look at it and go,
Exactly.
well, what's going on?
I mean, we don't know. We're not experts, so we need an expert to look at it.
Because, I mean, just seeing that water line break so often, I've had people from the city tell me years ago that that's because there's so much fill and that whole area keeps settling. And that's why the water line in that area keeps breaking. You know, 3 breaks within about 75 feet in 10 years, that's a lot of breakage in a water line. I mean, how
Well,
old
it depends on how old the water line is.
Yeah,
but,
that was going to be my next question. It
mean,
didn't look
some
that
of those
old. when
water
they dug
lines
down
get
to
I
it,
don't
100
know
years
how
old.
old it is, yeah.
You know, and so I'm just a little bit concerned with that, you know. Also, our neighborhood, we don't have any sidewalk plans, you know. I was told many years ago that they decided many years ago to give up on having sidewalks in our neighborhood and said, well, you're not going to object if we ever come in to put them in. And there's never been a plan, but basically that whole area has no sidewalks. And with more people up there all the time, it's becoming a little hard to walk around up there sometimes, you know. I'm just really mainly concerned about where there would be enough parking for these people to park without ending up parking into the street, you know, and creating a one-lane street at an intersection. you know.
That's not a question we can really consider tonight, is that? We're not being asked to approve a site design review.
No.
So, for this gentleman's sake, will there be a site design review as this project goes forward, assuming it goes forward? Will there be a time that he can ask those questions and see them addressed?
Not optimally, because the development of detached single-family dwellings and duplexes in this zoning district are outright permitted and specifically by code do not require a site design review. And so so instead of having basically a site design review or a land use application in between the vacant state and getting a building permit, it's just the building permit submittal. And so with the building permit, we do look at all the basic things that our code asks for, like parking, maintaining the vision clearance at the intersection, and things like that. But there's no notice to neighbors for that. They would just probably have to hound us. Hey, is that permitted?
Once
Is that
again,
permitted?
Did you say is like on 3rd Street itself, is that really legal for people to be parking in the street, on the pavement, or is that a weird gray area?
Well, that's a good question. And I mean, that happens throughout this side of town because the rights of way are really wide, being 80 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The question, though, is reducing it to that width where it's only one way. One, you're restricting fire access.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be something in the code. I personally don't deal with parking enforcement, and so those rules are not as ingrained in my mind.
Because, I mean, once again, that just would be really bad, because if you were parked on Tualatin and you were parked onto the pavement with the crest of the hill there, you would be coming over a crest of hill on the wrong side of the street just because somebody decided to park there that day.
So Jacob, did this community kind of shoot themselves in the foot by narrowing the street down when they did the vacation to make their street narrower? And
yeah, there's a
then
lot of
complain about it
opinions
when
on
they
the past
narrowed it?
approach to vacations, and it's not a good time for me to get on my soapbox.
Because it's a 50-foot road right-of-way is what's left on 3rd Street right now.
But that is the minimum in our
Yeah.
standards. So
Mm-hmm.
From 80. I mean, 80 was big.
And most of the houses up there actually have, I will say, going back from the edge of the pavement back, have pavement. But once again, on that particular lot, you have the water line that's there, and multiple vehicles have sunk in the mud.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to pull into there unless you put a lot of rock in there, and then you start wondering about how much is that water line going to sink more and break again. So that's, I want to make sure I have good water in my neighborhood. You know, I don't want to be losing water constantly because the line has more weight going across it, and it's soft, and it keeps breaking the water line. So that's probably about, let me check my lines. I think that's mainly it. I'm just concerned that lot is too soft. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one thing to think about, and the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut, is when we look at some of the standards in the code. For example, if you look at the variance standards, there's one that talks about existing physical and natural systems such as but not limited to traffic, drainage, dramatic landforms, parks will not be adversely affected any more than would occur if the development were located as specified in the code. And so, you know, I can't answer the on-street parking question specifically, but one thing to ask yourselves is dividing it this way as opposed to dividing it perpendicular to 3rd and tearing down the house. Do you think that creates a new problem just based on this orientation? And how does that sit with you as far as looking at approval criteria?
Well, if you divided it if you divide that the other way, if you divide it the other way, how would the middle lot, they would be all, the house would have, would there be enough frontage or for the house to be, it's gonna be a long, narrow lot, right?
Yeah.
And so the house would almost have to be set in sideways, or a very narrow house with 2 stories.
Yes.
A skinny winny house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Townhouse.
The AR zone, which this is pretty friendly as far as its standards. So, for example, the lot width
And
is 30 feet.
okay, and even if we did that, I mean, even if that was an option, that doesn't really address the issue of the water settling on the property. I mean, it doesn't matter one way or the other how you divide up the lot. If you have a water problem settling in there, you're still going to have that water problem no matter how you divide up that lot.
Yeah, it would depend. Let's say there was more of a water problem near Third, and I don't know. I don't know. This
I'm
is
not
totally
special.
hypothetical.
Yeah,
But if it
exactly.
was more spongy and less suitable for foundation close to Third and better on the other side, assuming that, then if it was split down by Third, you could push the buildings to where the house is now. But we probably shouldn't talk too much.
Yeah, because
before
we're
we
not.
give the
well-
applicant an opportunity to reply.
Well, and we're not being asked to change the application's proposal either. We have to.
I do have one more question I want to ask, and I'm hoping I can frame it well enough. If we have a soggy spot, is there a position strategy or direction that can be made that soggy spot has to be filled with rock materials that will stabilize it?
The geotech's going to identify that and make recommendations. And the geotech would have an engineer say you have to run piling down or take all that out. So Jacob can't really answer that. He's asking for a geotech report. And then the builder would have to do what the geotech says, and it may just be too costly.
So that is actually the exact answer I was hoping to hear.
There you go.
So like the question that begs the question, okay, you require this and it's contingent on that, right? So if the geotech report says this isn't a buildable lot because it goes down 50 feet of muck, then the petition couldn't happen.
As
So you don't make
condition-
up.
as is a condition currently, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's
Or what more than likely would happen is the geotech will come back with some options, alternatives, because they generally,
Yeah.
it would have to be a really significant thing to say you can't build because
Sure.
there's so many ways that you can get around things. But it could end up being so costly to the owner that they would just scrap the whole project.
And my question is to any owner, I suppose, but I guess if it's possible for us to accept it then. If the geotech comes up with a possibility to develop it, then we would say it's a buildable lot, right? Even if it's expensive.
Yeah, the way we have it worded is that we want the geotech report prepared by a registered professional that demonstrates the soil characteristics of the new parcel are reasonable for construction.
And the city gets the copy of the report.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, we
I think
wouldn't
that's-
say, well, this so-and-so said it's okay. Oh,
Well, and
cool, all right, we'll
I
sign
think
it.
that's all that we.
You know, we'll want the
Yeah.
evidence.
I think that's all that we could possibly do. I mean, we can't deny something that we don't know about. I mean, we're just supposing here. So we really need the experts to tell us.
But I think we should get to the rebuttal, the opportunity to rebut.
Well, except I'd like to point out for the planning commission, in case there are no more oppositions, that there is in our packet, there there was a letter, an additional letter of opposition, that I just wanted the commission to know that was in there. That's all I.
This on the back.
Okay, we done?
This
We have a rebuttal
Yeah,
from
we're
the
done.
applicant.
Is it possible that the letter was from this gentleman? Was that the gentleman? Oh, that was.
It was from a lady.
Pat
the one in the
Urbino.
back? Okay. So you want rebuttal?
Yes.
You have the opportunity. You're not obligated to.
All right, well, I think we're on track with the geotech survey. I think that's gonna answer a lot of the water questions. He has parking concerns. I think as long as we build something that provides parking as per code, I think we're gonna have no parking problems. And as far as parking on the city goes, if you're unhappy with somebody parking on the street, you call the police and they ticket them and they move their car. So I think we've addressed many of his concerns, and I think we're just gonna have to wait and see what the geotech says.
Okay,
Any questions? Thank you, guys.
all right. No final questions? Okay, if there's no further questions from the commission and no further responses from the staff, the public record is closed, and this matter is returned to the table for deliberations or oral discussion.
Just condition it.
Anybody?
So remember, there's two things we have to decide on, right? We have to decide
That is right.
on
Variance
on
and
the variance to allow the
minimum lot depth.
minimum lot depth.
Correct.
And if
the
we can
petition.
accept that, then vote on the petition. Well, it makes sense to me shape-wise to shape it that way, rather than skinny lots to require skinny-winny houses that don't fit the neighborhood very well. Personally.
Well, and this is all we're being asked to consider
Yeah.
anyway. So the other thing is really a mute
Well,
point.
it's just, that's the alternative for a partition would be
Or to
to have the
deny
right
it-
depth.
Or
have the
to
right depth.
deny it because
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
I think there is
We don't have that alternative.
a reasonable level of concern about the soils, and I think that we're in a path that will cause that to be investigated, and that's going to determine the really likely use of the property.
exactly. Yeah. Who gets to, is it the owner that gets to pick the geotech? Just like a surveyor?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You know, we
'Cause they're footing the bill.
we can't recommend.
Yeah.
We just, we want to make sure it's a suitable professional,
Oh,
not
exactly.
a high schooler in their senior project.
Somebody doing it out the back of the door. So, we should do the variance first, right? Then the partition,
Yeah, I would.
separate?
I think you could make a motion for it all, but probably to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page for the variance. If it seems like the majority are going to deny the variance, then the partition falls.
Okay.
So that's probably to kind of see where you're all thinking on that would be a good idea.
Anybody have any other questions?
I have no problem with anything except the geological.
Well, and that's the direct
And
part of it.
as far as I'm concerned,
Make a motion.
make a motion that we accept the variance as submitted at the present time.
Second it?
Your motion and seconded to accept it? That's for the variance?
Just the variance.
Just the variance?
Yeah.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the partition as requested,
I'll second it.
with the conditions as stipulated.
I hear a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the chairman be authorized to sign when the report is ready for his signature.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to sign. Is that, where am I?
it's so you can sign it
I can sign it.
later, so when you vote on it.
We vote on me signing it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Never paid attention to that one.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay.
Opposed? Okay.
There you go.
This is why we like to spread the love of chair, vice chair. That way.
Yeah, well, he's kicked me a few times.
I'm helping.
Everybody should
He's
have.
doing okay.
All right.
Okay, where are we?
That's it.
That's it?
We got it.
Okay.
Good
I
job.
think we've done all the business.
And
This-
we got out before midnight.
Yeah, these decisions are appealable to the city council by an affected party or person of interest.
He just said it.
You just said it.
But you might, may I make a recommendation to the city, that city staff, since we did have one person attend the public hearing tonight, that is a proper, adjacent or nearby property owner, that has indicated wanting to know when the next phase goes on for site design, even if it's in-house, that they be notified.
You can
Um,
ask, right?
Would there be a public notice
be-
for,
yeah,
for a permit? There wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's
Permitted.
No, he said that normally they would notify.
yeah. It'd just be a building permit.
Oh, okay.
And my only reservation is it creates potential procedural favoritism outside the scope of law.
Okay.
Which is I mean, anybody can look in the file because it's public record, and can look at the geotech report, and
Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the parking.
yeah.
I mean, when the final proposal is presented by the property owner, whether it's an in-house decision or would be a formal public hearing, there should be an opportunity for people who have come before a public hearing. I mean, we do that all the time when things get moved up to another layer.
Yeah.
We say that you will be notified because you were here for the initial hearing. So that was my only, since
No, I hear you. And anybody who provided testimony will get a copy of this decision.
right.
The building permit, though, it's just so administerial.
Okay.
It's not this decision.
Well, isn't there going to be another process, one?
No.
No.
No, that's what we're talking about. This is, yeah, we won't, because it's an outright use. I mean,
Yeah. So
I'm wondering what happens when they do the geological survey to find out if they have a muck that's gonna send the structure all the way to China, or whether it will withstand the building they're planning to put on it.
I'm curious too.
When
So's
is
the owner, I
that
bet.
in the process?
Okay. So the public hearing's over, so we're just in informal discussion now. So first step is approval of preliminary plat. We now have a tentative approval subject to an appeal period. All
Just
right.
to say you are live, by the way. I haven't stopped anything.
Yeah. No, there's nothing.
Okay, just-
There's no
I'm just-
problem here. I'm not going to start swearing.
This
So.
is still running.
So, and then over here is the final plat. And that's the document, the official document that we sign, and it gets recorded at the county, and that cuts it into two. In between these 2 points, we have some things we want to happen. Some surveys about the public infrastructure, the geotech report to show, we have some reasonable soil to build on. And that stuff happens in between this time. Now, if the applicant doesn't do that within 12 months and doesn't file for an extension, then the application becomes void, and it lives in a file, and we had some fun tonight for no purpose. But if they do proceed with it, you could have a final plat within 12 months or 18 months with a time extension. And then once that final plat's recorded, then after that, the applicant can come, he can sell the lot, or apply for a building permit, and that's where we'll look at, okay, to make sure it avoids any easements that were created by the plat, meets all of our yard setback requirements, our parking requirements, and stuff like that.
Thank you, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted the people in the audience to know too.
Great. Thank you for asking.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I care. You
You can,
second it?
you get your big thing if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Slam that baby down.
We are adjourned. Is that all I have to say?